All right, YouTube, what's going on? We've got a video today on the Demko knives AD20. Yes, lots of videos on this knife. This one's on review or lend. Ugh. This was lent to me by a buddy, Jake at Bearded Gear. We met up last week, I believe it was. He was down here in Utah. Met up with him and Everyday Minimalist, Brandon, and Jake had talked about loaning me his AD20 on his podcast that I was on. And I said, yes, I would love to check it out. He brought it with him, grabbed it from him, and he has my mini Adamas. So we're kind of doing a little swap for a minute, so he can kind of get his hands on with that mini Adamas. So this is a knife I've wanted to check out for a long time. Almost tried to buy it quite a few times, but it's very difficult to get. It's sold directly through Demko or their dealers, but they sell out in seconds. This is a super popular knife. At the retail price, well, we'll talk about that more in value, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. So let's talk about specs. So your overall length is 8.5 inches. So this is a big boy. A 3.7-inch blade with a 5-inch handle. That would make it 8.7, but whatever. Available on a few different types of steels, typically 20 CV or 3V. This particular one is in 3V. But they've seen some in crew wear. They come with G10 handles. They come with full titanium, or they have FRN. And then they come with the hole or not with the hole. They always have these studs there, so they have a hole and studs, which is interesting. Yeah, so available in lots of different colors and variations, but they just sell out so quickly when you first get them. Weight is pretty heavy. Not gonna lie, it's a big boy. 6.2 ounces, so not the lightest weight knife for everyday carry for sure. But I don't know that Demko really ever has. I mean, I guess some of his cold steel models would meet that, but most of his customs, think the AD15, the AD10, they're all big beefy knives. Just kind of what he's known for. What he's really known for is his locking mechanisms. This is the Shark Lock, which is his latest and greatest. They have the Scorpion Lock, the Triad Lock. So lots of strong, overbuilt, heavy used type of locking mechanisms. And I wanted to check out the Shark Lock more than anything when I got this knife. So the action is smooth. Let's talk about the action. Since, I don't go in any kind of particular format. I try to cover all these things, but the action's amazing. The locking mechanism is really cool. You essentially just lift up on this and that drops shut. Locks into place, similar to kind of how an Axis lock works. I'm not gonna go way into the details of how the lock works. There's lots of good videos out there already on that, but it is ultra smooth action. You can use the thumb studs, you can use the middle finger, or you can actually just open it with the locking mechanism like a bench, like an Axis lock. So the locking mechanism is freaking cool. One of the main highlights of this knife, the fidgetability, we'll call it, is off the charts. I'll just sit here and do this with this knife over and over. I mean, it's like one of those knives that's gonna drive your wife nuts kind of knife. So very cool, but at the same time, it's not just a gimmick or anything. It's not just fidgety. It's an extremely strong locking mechanism. Jake has said he's baton with this knife quite a bit. I can imagine it really fits that bill of like just an ultra hard use knife. So let's do some size comparisons before I get too far in. Some of the biggest knives I own. This is definitely bigger than any knife I own right now. This is the Strider SNG, which it makes it look quite a bit smaller. Let me zoom just a titch. The Hinder Fire Attack would be a good one to do a size comparison on. So it's bigger than the Fire Attack, and it's going to be bigger than the XM18, 3.5 inch for sure as well. So yeah, it's a big knife, boys. There's no getting around it. It's a big boy, but very, the design of it was meant to be this way. It's meant to be a big, overbuilt, beefy knife. Cutting performance, not the best because it's super thick behind the edge. Now, again, look at the intended use of this knife. This is not like hey, I'm gonna go process cardboard with a dumpster knife. I'm gonna carry this as my ADC and cut a few things. It's almost 28, it's about 28 thousandths behind the edge. It's thick boy. So it's not slicey, doesn't have the best edge geometry, but it's built to be super ultra durable at the edge as well as the overall knife. So it fits. That is one of my negatives on this knife though. I wish it was slicier. I wish it had a thinner edge profile, because if you look at like an SNG, which is also a pretty overbuilt, knife, not as strong a locking mechanism with the frame lock, but still, thick blade stock. Look at those guys next to each other, very similar size blade stock. In fact, I'm just curious, I'm gonna measure. This is a fatty SNG, is 1.855. The AD15 is actually thinner at the blade stock, 1.76. But the hollow grind on the Strider is going to come down to a much more acute edge at a 17 thousandths behind the edge. So I would have loved to seen that. Yes, it has some thick blade stock, but you can bring that geometry down more and have a thinner edge, So that is one of my gripes on this knife. Let's talk about, so cutting is not, it's not going to be slicey, it's not, but look at the intended use. It's going to be durable. If you need to use this as an outdoor folder and it's your only knife on you, not carrying a fixed blade, you had to, in a situation, process wood, freak baton with it, whatever you need to do, it's gonna do the job just fine. And with that 3V steel, it's gonna have really good edge stability. And it's thick, so it should really hold up to a lot of abuse. But I still think that you could thin that out. So ergonomics are really good. Like, it's a big knife, but the handle is super comfy. I did a lot of cutting with this as well. Didn't do so well in cardboard, didn't expect it to because of the blade geometry. But like wood, processing wood, doing a lot of I honestly did some chopping with this into some wood. I did like feather sticking, notching, a lot of outdoor stuff, because that's really how I envision you to use a folder like this. And it did fantastic in those tasks. So, and the steel is still sharp. I mean, 3V is not necessarily known for having great edge retention. It's good edge retention, but it's not like, really good, like not great edge retention. But it's still, and this is used from Jake a lot before I had it. So it's not like it's, just got a fresh edge on it. So it's held up really well edge retention wise. I'm sure the heat treat on this 3V is really good. So, but yeah, cutting ergonomically, gonna kind of get off topic. It is really good. It is comfortable in the hand. Did a lot of cuts. The hammer grip's fine. I thought that the lock might cause an issue. When I remember I first saw this, I was like, that little nub sticking up, is that gonna get in your way? He actually put jimping on it so you can use it as a point of holding the knife. I typically didn't. I would reach around it, I guess you'd say. And use this jimping up here. You can choke up way up here like this with the handle, but I would typically hold it like this or just not use the jimping, because the handle design locks in your hand really well. So the ergonomics are really good. Really hard to use knife. This is really good for that. I did notice this lock a little bit, and because of that jimping, sometimes it would wear on my thumb when I was holding over the top. Not bad though, not like it cut me or was super sharp or anything, so I'm not worried about it, but that is something to note ergonomically. It is a big knife. You got big hands, this is totally for you. But if you don't have big hands, if you have like average size hands like me, it's still very comfortable. And you do have some points to choke up on if you need to, so you can do some finer, detail work. So ergos are great. Carry, it's not it's huge, you know what I mean? It's wide, it's heavy, and it's 1.6 inches wide in your pocket. It's over 5 inches long, and it's thick. Like, it's just, the handle's pretty thick. What is the handle thickness? 0.56. Not like an ideal everyday carry knife by any stretch. Can you carry it? Absolutely. Clip works, yes. Definitely not deep carry. You're having that much go up. Jake said he tried a deep carry, hurt the ergonomics. The ergonomics of this clip are great. They don't hurt anything. But, as far as carry, you're going to carry this when you don't mind having a big piece of steel that weighs over 6 ounces in your pocket, right? Definitely a 100% primary blade, outdoor use, but I would want to pair it with something like, this is what I've been pairing it with all week since I got it from Jake, was the Quiet Carry Drift. This was like the two knives that I carried pretty much all week long. This, because I'm doing reviews on both, for one, but also because this was just a better, slicier, you know, this when I did cardboard, when I did the cutting, I did it with both knives at the same time. And obviously this cut better, just everything. But I don't know, this, you know, under hard use was less comfortable to use. So there you go. If you need that kind of use, then you carry a smaller secondary and you have this as your primary. So overall, you know, carry, not the best, but it's huge. So it's not what you expect. You don't buy this and say, I'm going to ADC that every day, and that's going to be a great ADC knife for the office. You know what I mean? That's not really the intended use of the knife. He is coming out, however, speaking of that, with a AD20.5 produced in Taiwan for Demko knives, not for cold steel. I think he's done dealing with cold steel is my guess, as far as like the new models. It is coming out. It's smaller. I think it's like a 3 1/4 inch blade. Metal Complex actually got his hands on a couple, so you can check out his video. It's going to come in 2 blade shapes, a drop point and a shark, shark's foot they call it. It's like a sheep's foot, but kind of looks like a shark because the shark look, yeah. I'm super excited for that because it's going to be lighter weight, smaller blade, same locking mechanism though, and it's going to be budget-ish, offering probably around the $100 and something mark, produced in Taiwan. So that is pretty exciting that they're bringing that locking mechanism to the masses. I really like that about Demko. He's done that with the Scorpion lock, with the, obviously with the the Triad. You know, it's nice to see that. I was really happy to hear that. So I would actually like to see him though use that same size for one of his models and sell it under his name as a custom or whatever we would call this. So that it's in that gray area. Everything's produced by the Demko brothers right there. So sometimes they offer hand ground blades, some are machine ground. Obviously the hand ground will be a lot more expensive. So, you know, I would love to see him offer that directly through Demko at a more premium price, steel, premium material price, you know, point. I would love to see that. So hopefully that happens too. But I'm definitely going to pick up one of the Taiwanese produced ones. Overall, aesthetics are cool on this knife for sure. I think it looks awesome. It looks tough. It looks bad A. This is a knife that I would like say, hey, you're going overseas to war, take this with you. If you're going, you know, you're a Leo, first responder, absolutely. If you spend a lot of time in the outdoors and want a fully knife that you can use for everything, this is that. This is the design purpose, I think, of this knife. And I think that it meets those needs super well. So overall, I'm actually super stoked he let me borrow it. So thanks again to Bearded Gear. Make sure you check out his channel if you haven't. It's great content. We share a lot of very similar opinions. So I would definitely recommend this if you can get one for the price that they're normally sold out. Let's talk about value, and we'll wrap it up. Value when it's sold at its normal price of $425-ish, depending on your features and such. That's kind of what the starting point is. $400, $425 is great, fantastic. It's kind of like when you can find this is a bad example because this one's really limited, but you can find a Strider directly from them for around that price, like an SNG. Same kind of price point, made in the US. I think it's very fair. When you get in the secondary market and they're selling for $700, I don't know. For me, I'm like, no, I wouldn't pay that much. Would I pay $425-ish or even a little bit more? Yes, I would. So there you go. Leave it at that for the value discussion. I think it's really good at the intended price point, but the secondary market on these is just as bad as it is Vero knives and a lot of other knives right now. So take it for what it's worth. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up the video on the AD20. Really cool knife. Love that action. It's super fun, super fidgety, but a good overall like hard use knife. Absolutely would recommend it for that use. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.